Let's look at some of the top stories. Japanese Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba announces he is stepping down after less than a year in power, following his party's historic losses in both houses of parliament. The resignation throws Japan into political uncertainty amid rising tensions with China, even as Ishiba hails a new tariff deal with President Trump. Russia launches its largest air assault of the war, firing drones and missiles that set Ukraine's main government building ablaze in Kyiv and kill at least 4, including an infant. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky calls for stronger air defences as strikes hit Odessa, Zaporozhye and other regions. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer and other European leaders condemn Russia's massive airstrike on Ukraine. Starmer calls them cowardly and saying that they prove Vladimir Putin is not serious about peace. He says he is appalled by the latest overnight assaults on Kyiv and other cities. Israel's Airports Authority says a drone from Yemen strikes the arrivals hall at Ramon Airport near Eilat, halting takeoffs and landings. The Israeli military says it is investigating the incident as officials work to restore normal operations. Israeli forces carry out new strikes on Gaza City, where hundreds of thousands are sheltering. They also urge Hamas to surrender. Foreign Minister Gideon Saar says the war could end immediately if hostages are released and Hamas lays down its arms. London's Metropolitan Police say 890 people are arrested during a weekend protest in support of the banned group Palestine Action. Officials say 857 were held under the Terrorism Act and 33 others for offences including assaults on police. Pope Leo XIV canonises London-born teen Carlo Acutis, dubbed God's influencer, making him the Catholic Church's first millennial saint. The 15-year-old, who used the internet to spread his faith before his death in 2006, is honoured alongside Pier Giorgio Frattesi at Mass in St. Peter's Square. Norwegians head to the polls in a close parliamentary election, pitting the ruling Labour Party against a right-wing bloc led by the Progress Party and Conservatives. 9 parties are expected to win seats, but only 3 leaders are in the running for Prime Minister. Now we start in the Middle East, where Israeli air forces have intercepted 3 drones launched from Yemen. Military officials say 2 of the drones were brought down before entering Israeli airspace, while a third crossed the border through Egypt and was intercepted after triggering warning sirens in several southern communities. The incident also follows reports of a suspected drone impact near Ramon Airport in southern Israel. While no major damage or injuries have been confirmed, air traffic in the area was briefly affected. These latest attacks are part of a broader escalation involving Yemen's Houthi rebels, who have increased drone and missile activity in recent weeks. The Houthis have vowed retaliation after an Israeli airstrike last month killed their prime minister and other senior officials. Since the outbreak of the Gaza war in October of 2023, the Houthis have launched repeated attacks in support of the Palestinians, prompting Israeli military responses deep into Yemen. We're now joined by 2 guests today to discuss these ongoing situations in West Asia. Professor Kobi Michael joins us. He's a senior researcher at the INSS and Misgav Institute. He joins us live from Israel. And we're also joined by Ali Mohammed Bushbak. He is an independent Palestinian researcher, and he joins us live from Cairo in Egypt. Ali, I want to first start with you. We have news of a drone breaking through the Iron Dome defences and making contact, although not causing much damage, in a Israeli airport. What are the military capabilities of the Houthis, and what are their objectives here when they launch attacks like this?
Thank you, Thomas, for having me. This is a good thing that sorry, that Al Houthi now he's targeting Ramon airport that's in the near Eilat places that's near the Red Sea. So as we mentioned last time, that Houthi now he will start increase his targeting and his operation in Red Sea, and that the crisis of Red Sea it will be again nowadays. And one of the closest area from Yemen area to Israel, it's Eilat, and this is a city, a state has a significant things, and also it's considered as a tourist place that Eilat, and it's a coastal area toward the Red Sea. So also that footage that shared on social media by the Israelis activists showing the huge destruction in the airport. Also, it has a symbolic things. Despite we are not, and we are thankful that there is no casualties from the civilians or anything, but the symbolic, the destruction itself to the airport. Yemen Houthi and Houthi usually targeting an active area, and that damaging the economy of Israel or impacting the economy of Israel. We have witnessed a several of targeting for the Tel Aviv airport and that airport in Jerusalem, as well as now in Eilat, that Ramon airport. So the significant issue that creating also the chaos among the traveler people from into Israel or out to Israel, that's creating a several of chaos among the traveler, and that's making the civilians from Israel feeling there is a no secure in this area, so we should leave this, and that's imposed the counter immigration from Israel, the counter immigration, the people who leaving Israel, because Israel usually rely on the outside immigration from Western country, the Jewish from Western country. One of the significant tools in the conflict between Palestinian and Israel is existence conflict, and who between Palestinian and Israel. So that has consequences that civilians from Israel will feel insecure in this area, so they are going to leave. And even when you are going to leave, the Houthis drone and missiles, which consider one of the advanced weapon from in the area and in the region. We have seen several of Houthis missile reach to heart of Tel Aviv and the heart of Israel, that creating a several of chaos and circumstances. This retaliation, as you mentioned, after the Israel target a Prime Minister of Houthis government, and I guess this is only the beginning. The escalation of the situation on the ground, it will create a several of a wave of violence in the area, and I'm not.
Yes.
I expect that also Iraqi Shia and Iraqi militant group, maybe they will involve in the this wave of violence. Despite they are now up to now they are in neutral, but if it will be a comprehensive fighting in this region, and it will be a flashpoint. No one could be stop this this war. Yeah, Thomas.
Okay, yes, thank you very much, Ali. Do stay with us. We have further updates from the conflict. The Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has stated that Israel is deepening its operation in and around Gaza City as the military carries out strikes on Gaza's largest urban center, where hundreds of thousands of Palestinians are seeking shelter. Netanyahu has said that a humanitarian area has been established to allow civilians to leave safely, and that about 100,000 people have left so far. Let's take a closer look at what the Israeli Prime Minister has stated.
צהריים טובים. אנחנו מעמיקים את התמרון בפאתי העיר עזה ובתוך העיר עזה. אנחנו מחסלים מחבלי נוח'בה שנטלו חלק משמעותי בטבח של ה-7 באוקטובר. אנחנו מחסלים תשתיות טרור, אנחנו מחסלים מגדלי טרור מופללים, ואנחנו הקמנו עוד מרחב הומניטרי לאפשר לאוכלוסייה האזרחית בעזה לצאת למקום מבטחים וגם לקבל שם את הסיוע ההומניטרי. בינתיים יצאו מעזה כ-100,000 איש. החמאס מנסה לעשות הכל כדי שלא יצאו, ויישארו שם כדי שיהוו עבורו מגן אנושי. אם אני צריך לבחור בין ניצחון על אויבינו לבין תעמולה רעה נגדנו, אני בוחר בניצחון על אויבינו, ומאשר ההפך. אני לא רוצה כתבות שאנחנו נובס על ידי אויבינו, ושנקבל כתבות ספד טובות בתקשורת העולמית. אני בוחר בניצחון.
This comes after Israeli Foreign Minister Gideon Saar told reporters in Jerusalem that the war could end immediately if Hamas released the remaining hostages being held in Gaza and laid down its weapons. In response, senior Hamas official Bassam Naim has said that it would not lay down its arms but would release all the hostages if Israel agreed to end the war and withdraw its forces from Gaza, a stance that has reportedly long been the group's position. We are once again joined by Ali M. Bushback, but we're also joined by Professor Kobi Michael, and he's a senior researcher at the INSS and Misgav Institute, and he joins us live from Israel. Thank you very much for joining us, Professor. This humanitarian zone that we just heard Benjamin Netanyahu talk about, there has been reports of bombings and shortages of even in these so-called areas, which he says Palestinians, 100,000 of which have reportedly moved to now. How credible is this claim that this truly is a well-established humanitarian zone where Palestinians, where if they do, they are displaced to again, they will be safe from strikes?
I think that it is a very credible and safe place that the IDF prepared, and this will not be the only one. There will be an extension of these areas, and I think that any citizen who thinks about his or her life, future, and well-being should leave the city of Gaza and move to these areas. The IDF is very serious with regard to its intentions when it comes to the occupation of the city of Gaza. And I think that it will be the most reasonable thing to do, to leave this active war zone.
Yes, and just following up on that, Professor Michael, we just heard that Hamas has said that it will release all the hostages but does refuse to lay down its arms. If Israel does continue its offensive in Gaza City, as it is currently doing, and does not accept a deal, isn't it putting lives of hostages in danger over favouring diplomacy that will see all hostages released as it has stated that it wants?
First of all, your assumption is that Hamas is reliable and Hamas really intends to release the hostages. I really doubt this intention of Hamas. Secondly, the situation of the hostages currently is not a good situation, which means that even if Israel will stop the military efforts with regard to Gaza, it doesn't mean that tomorrow Hamas intends to release the hostages. It means that Hamas will begin a sort of an attrition war vis-à-vis Israel in order to increase the pressures on Israel domestically and internationally in order to cease the war and to reach to a situation where Israel will be forced by the international community and by its own constituency to cease the war, and Hamas will remain on its feet as an effective sovereign power in the Gaza Strip with some critical assets as hostages that will not be released. So I think that Israel doesn't buy anymore the plays of Hamas, and Israel, by the way, supported by the international community with regard to its security demands that say that Hamas will be disarmed, Hamas will not be part of the day after in the Gaza Strip, and the Gaza Strip will be demilitarized zone. All of these demands are accepted by the entire international community, including the Arab countries. So there is no any reason that Israel will give up on these demands, and therefore there is no any reasonable, I would say, reason to assume that Israel will cease the war without realizing these demands.
Ali, I want to bring you back in now. If you could respond to Professor Michael there, and by holding on to these hostages, isn't Hamas prolonging the war and the suffering of the Palestinians in Gaza?
Thomas, first of all, the hostages or captive, it's a burden for Hamas to secure them. It takes several of effort to move them from area to area. So Hamas want to end this chapter and closure it, and they want to a comprehensive deal with Israel to end this hectic job from them. Several of Palestinian they are casualties because of such kind of a reason or to secure the Israelis captive. First, second, Hamas take care of them. I don't know. I'm defending Hamas because they know the consequences. If they will not treat them very well, the consequences it will be erased Hamas from the existence. So Hamas are very concerned. If you remember in the very beginning of the war, Abu Ubaidah, the spokesman of Hamas, he said if Israel it will not stop targeting the civilians' infrastructure, we will kill the civilians one by one. But after that, they didn't do anything because they know the consequences of treating the Israelis captive, and it's one of a good card for Hamas. But also about the humanitarian zone. Today, I talked to one of the civilians who's in the very harsh area, very tension area. I talked to him, you should evacuate your place and you should go to the Mawasi Khan Yunis. Despite it's a dangerous, according to the several of reports, media reports, but you should be at least, you know what he said? He said, I don't care about the safety, but there is no one place. People are going to that area from North Gaza to find out a space for them. Then they come back to North Gaza. When I asked him why, he said there is no place for them. You can imagine you are concentrated at 2 million civilians in one area. How it will be? How the imagination? How can you imagine this? It's not possible. As well as the things like when they said about the Gaza humanitarian function, that it will help the civilians, and we have seen several of reports how it's involved in the violence and killing the civilians and killing the people and the food seeker and the humanitarian aid seeker. So the things is exacerbated the situation, and we are talking about the annexation in West Bank and also.
I'm sorry to interrupt. We have run out of time. I'm so sorry. Ali Mohammed Bushback and Professor Kobi Michael, thank you very much for joining us here on the programme. Here on NewsX World, of course, we will continue to bring you all the updates coming out of the ongoing Israel-Hamas war. Israel's Foreign Minister Gideon Saar called the international push to recognise a Palestinian state a mistake, warning it could force Israel to take unilateral action. The comments came during a press conference with Danish Foreign Minister Lars Løkke Rasmussen. Saar warned Israel might respond with unilateral decisions. Let's take a listen to what Gideon Saar, the Israeli Minister of Foreign Affairs, had to say.
Those states like France and the UK that pushed the so-called recognition in the so-called Palestinian state had made a tremendous mistake, because you cannot disconnect the issue of statehood, which is one of the final status issues, one of the final status agreement issues. You cannot disconnect statehood from peace, because if you do that, you will make even more harder to get to the peace.
Meanwhile, Rasmussen clarified that Denmark is not ready to recognise Palestine, emphasising Israel has the no veto over Danish decisions. He also urged Israel to halt military action in Gaza and expansion on the West Bank settlements. This is what Lars Løkke Rasmussen, the Danish Minister of Foreign Affairs, had to say.
And I totally subscribe to the fact that radical Islam is a problem of mutual concern. And it goes without saying that we demand that all Israeli hostages in Gaza are released immediately. And we have said that frequently and from day one, also Israel's right to self-defense. But it doesn't change the fact that we are extremely concerned about the humanitarian disaster in Gaza. And that's why I used the opportunity today to repeat our calls for Israel to stop the military offensive in Gaza, and to ensure immediate and unhindered humanitarian assistance. And I also expressed our deep concern by the expansion of settlements in the West Bank. And I reiterated Denmark's offer to help assisting with the treatment of patients from Gaza in East Jerusalem or the West Bank.
We now move over to Europe, where Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says he has spoken with French President Emmanuel Macron following what is reportedly Russia's biggest wartime airstrike on Ukraine. The massive barrage has targeted Kiev and other cities, marking one of the most intense strikes since the war began. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer has strongly condemned the attacks, calling them cowardly and saying that they prove that Russian President Vladimir Putin is not serious about peace. This comes as Ukraine claims it carried out a strike on the Druzhba oil pipeline in Russia's Bryansk region, damaging energy infrastructure that delivers Russian oil to Hungary and Slovakia. In addition, the Russian military-controlled Zaporizhzhia nuclear plant has also reported that its training center was hit by a Ukrainian drone strike, damaging the roof of one of its buildings. Furthermore, Russia claims it has destroyed multiple Ukrainian drones, with the defense ministry saying air defenses shot down or intercepted 69 drones in one night. Moscow also claims that Ukraine has lost more than 1,000 troops in the past day across the so-called Special Military Operations Zone. We are now joined by our guest, Raymond Vickery. He is a former US Assistant Secretary of Commerce, and he joins us live from Washington, D.C. Raymond, it is always a pleasure to talk to you. We have seen a huge barrage of missiles, of drones coming over from Moscow into Ukrainian territory, hitting regions like Odessa and Zaporizhzhia, and of course the capital of Kiev, where 2 infants were killed in that strike, and a flaming government building in the Ukrainian capital. Keir Starmer and Volodymyr Zelensky have said that this shows that Vladimir Putin is not serious about peace. Can he be after this?
Well, thanks very much for having me. It's always a pleasure. But, you know, our president has no strategy and he doesn't have partners in waging peace. So President Trump has been sidelined, really. And if you look at what happened in China between Putin and Xi, you see that Putin is emboldened in his attempt to reestablish the old Russian Empire, which became the Soviet Union. It has been left then to France, UK, Western Europe, others to be able to step up and try to provide some strategy and some cooperation to be able to defend against this invasion which Russia has perpetrated on Ukraine, and which is the greatest violation of the United Nations Charter since the United Nations was founded. Not just the Charter of the United Nations, but the very principle that one nation does not have the right to use violence in order to impose its will on another. This is a bedrock of so many democracies, including India as well as Western Europe, United States and Japan. But this development lays bare really what many have been saying all along, that Putin's invasion of Ukraine really has nothing to do with the supposed root causes. It really has to do with the 19th century and really age-old instincts of some to try to be able to claim greatness by claiming the territory and dominion over others. So it's a very serious development, emboldened by Xi, and really what happened in regard to the military parade with North Korea. And we are slipping more and more into a very dangerous pre-World War sort of situation, which was experienced in the early part of the 20th century and led to tremendous losses for the world.
Raymond Vickery, thank you very much for joining us. It's always a pleasure to talk to you and get your insight on these matters. We now move on and stay in the region, where Ukrainian Prime Minister Yulia Tymoshenko has urged international partners to tighten sanctions against Russia after Moscow launched its biggest ever aerial barrage on Kyiv. In a video message, she showed the damage inside the government headquarters, which was hit for the first time since the war began. Let's watch the video.
Я прем'єр-міністр України Свериденко Юлія, знаходжусь тут, в будівлі уряду, де ворог вперше за час повномасштабної війни влучив у будівлю уряду в самому центрі міста Києва. Ми бачимо наслідки цієї ворожої атаки. Локалізована пожежа на площі 800 метрів квадратних. Наші рятувальники продовжують тут працювати. І все виглядало таким чином, що Росія не готова і не прагне миру, не готова до перемовин. Тому у мене заклик до наших партнерів. Допоможіть нам закрити небо, давайте підсилимо санкції проти Росії, давайте створимо таку систему гарантій для нашої держави, яка змусить ворога зупинитися.
We move to Western Europe next, where a new political flashpoint has emerged in France as far-right leader Marine Le Pen returned to the national stage. Speaking in Hénin-Beaumont, her stronghold in northern France, Le Pen declared that the country is facing a state of democratic suffocation unlike any seen under the Fifth Republic. Let's listen in to some excerpts from her speech.
Rentrée, nous l'abordons tous avec une particulière gravité à la mesure de la crise politique actuelle. J'y reviendrai. Pour nombre d'entre vous, pour des millions de nos compatriotes, la situation que nous traversons est bien souvent à la source d'une indignation et d'une exaspération légitime. Nul ne peut ni ne veut se reconnaître dans le pathétique spectacle offert par les partis macronistes et alliés qui prétendent gouverner la France depuis les dernières élections législatives en juillet 2024. La situation est aujourd'hui en vérité d'une tragique simplicité. La France est en état d'asphyxie démocratique, à un point que nous n'avions jamais connu sous la Ve République. Et en 8 ans, cette crise de la représentation, cette absence de légitimité politique structurante organisée par les partis du système n'ont fait que s'aggraver, plongeant la nation entière dans l'incertitude et l'angoisse.
Now we move on once again. 2 people were killed and several others injured when a section of a bridge under construction collapsed in southern Iraq. The incident took place late on Saturday on the main Karbala-Baghdad road, with rescue operations lasting more than 13 hours. Rescue workers laboured overnight to free people trapped in vehicles under the twisted wreckage. Karbala's civil defence agency confirmed the recovery of 2 bodies and the rescue of 7 people. At least 6 others were also injured, including foreign nationals from Syria and Afghanistan, and were also taken to a nearby hospital. Local officials said the bridge pillars collapsed as vehicles passed underneath. Let's take a listen in to one of the eyewitnesses.
أثناء المرور اللوريات جاي يصبون وين جات فوق جاي يصبون والسيارة يقطع وين جو الشارع جاي يمشي حاكينا قلنا سدوا الطريق ما سدوا أثناء الطريق ما سدوا قلنا لهم ليش يقول أثناء عادي وشغلة طبيعية من أثناء المرور كان يلتوي جسر وسقط.
Well, that is all that we have time for, but we will continue to bring you more news updates